On January 1st, 2012, adequate notice of this meeting pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act has been furnished by inclusion thereof in the annual schedule of meetings for 2012, which has been posted on the bulletin board at Borough Hall, filed with Borough Clerk, faxed to the Our Town, the Record of Community News, and the county seat newspapers, and distributed to all persons if any requesting copies of same pursuant to said act. In case of an emergency or fire alarm, you must evacuate the building by using any of the exit doors in the room. They're immediately to my right, and the double doors at the rear of the room. Occupants must exit the building by using the staircase and not the elevator. This meeting is being recorded by both video and audio and may be rebroadcast.
Everyone, please rise and pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mayor Padovano.
Here.
Council members Savage.
Here.
Fleischman.
Here.
Oriana.
Here.
Sebre.
Here.
Ballerini.
Here.
Meglio.
Here.
Borough Attorney Ronald Verio.
Here.
Borough Clerk James Allegra is here. Borough Administrator Roberta Stern. Here.
Just before we get to Chief Pegg, if I could have Chief Newman come forward, just briefly discuss with the council and public the events of August 15. There was a house fire in town. Just give a report on that.
They were dispatched at approximately 5:37 to 310 Concord for a possible house fire. Upon our arrival, there was heavy fire showing. We were lucky. Hackensack had been dispatched to a smoke condition down on the Esplanade, so they too were en route. They gave us aid along with several other towns. Upon our arrival, fire was through the roof. Our guys, everybody was on scene quickly, efficiently. The guys made an aggressive attack. You should be proud of each and every one of them. They saved that the house. It appears that the fire started in the back of the house, had a good head start on us. It went up the back of the house, up into the attic, was over our heads. It was burning through the roof. It was out the south side of the house, on the second floor. Guys went up there, made a good stop. They saved the roof on that house. They saved, there's damage, but they saved that house. The people had a lot of personal effects up in the attic and whatnot. It was a long overhaul. We had several other towns come in, like I said, Hackensack. We had towns covering our firehouses. And it was really a textbook fire, and I'm proud of each and every one of those guys for going in there and making such an aggressive attack. And you all should be proud equally.
Thank you, Chief. I think everybody is very proud of the job that was done. I had an opportunity to witness the fight that night, basically, and it ran very well. We were very fortunate that none of the firemen were injured. We did have one fireman had a little inhalation problem, but it turned out to be okay, and everything seemed to go very well. Fortunately, the homeowners were not home.
Right.
No pets even at the house. I really commend the fire department for the great job that you guys did. City of Hackensack as well. I think Saddlebrook was on the scene, and Paramus and Rochelle Park were also on the scene.
Garfield and Lodi staffed our firehouses.
And I personally sent the note to all of the departments that were involved, thanking them, because it was there was no additional adjacent property damage. It went as good as it possibly could. So thank you very much. And I guess a week later, there was another incident at on a property on Van Cleve.
Another possible house fire. Turned out to be minor, but...
And I understand it was put out by the homeowner prior to the trucks arriving, and just for the public, the homeowner, I guess it was a fan, if I'm not mistaken, a bathroom fan that caught, was able to put it out with the fire extinguisher she had. So I mean, it really shows the importance of the fire extinguisher. I'm presuming when you were in the house, it probably could have been a lot worse had it not been stopped at that moment.
Yeah, given another hour, they were sleeping.
Right.
You know,
Right.
time of day has a lot to do with it. The other house on Concord, the children had hearing difficulties. They were lucky, you know, in a way that they weren't home. The unfortunate thing is the fire did start outside. It was undetected for several hours. It was a rainy day. It was a hot day, and people just had their windows closed, didn't come out for the rain, and it just went undetected.
I was very impressed with the way the Hackensack ladder people operated that ladder.
Oh, yeah.
Driving a Volkswagen.
They were, you know, the timing, everything just fell into place just right. The timing was just right. The vent through the roof. If you watch the video on YouTube, you can see, you know, the fire was extensive. And like I said, I'm proud of each and every one of the guys.
Do we know how the fire started?
We can say that it was possibly electrical in nature. It was investigated by our own, and all points did lead to that. And so we're just gonna.
Did you want to mention the truck since you're here?
The truck?
Yes.
The truck is back in town. Thank you all for your support on getting that done. It was a long haul, but it's back. We had a little minor setback last night, but that's all back up and good to go. And again, thank you all for the support that you give us for the fire department. You know, we're there at a moment's notice, and we take pride in taking care of our stuff, and with your support, we can continue to do that.
Thank you very much,
All right.
Chief. Anybody else have any questions for the Chief?
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, Will.
Thank you.
Thanks. Chief Perry.
Good evening. Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, sir.
Okay. Where do we want to start?
Okay. The first thing I want to start with is the agreement with the Drug Enforcement Administration with the officer on loan for the next period of 2 years. And there were some questions that were asked at the last meeting, and I prepared a note that we'll go over, so it's in writing, so everybody knows what I'm actually talking about. And apparently there's been some talk, misconceptions of the officer who we currently have assigned there. And some of the questions that I've heard, I've tried to address, such as the first one, that we would have an officer away from the department for a period of time, causing a shortage in staffing. Yes, that is true. However, from the beginning, I've always said that I wanted to backfill that officer's position in patrol. The monies are available with the DEA seizure fund that we have. So there wouldn't be any additional expenditures to the borough out of the operating budget itself. The officer would be funded, just like the officer that we just hired last month. The officer would be funded entirely through the DEA fund. The cost of the overtime. There is provision above what we received from the seized money for $17,202.25 annually to cover any overtime occurred by the officer while he's actively involved with the investigations with the task force. Any additional overtime monies after that, we can take out of the DEA trust fund. So that's really not a no point. We have to pay for a vehicle for the detail. Well, we already have a surveillance vehicle in the borough of Maywood, which is what he's using. Unfortunately, he was involved in an accident, and we had to replace the vehicle. The replacement vehicle was a used vehicle that we got, which again was paid for with seized money that we have, basically seized money at the Bergen County Prosecutor's Office fund. that we purchased, the money was received, and deposited back into the borough account. Also, on top of that, the borough received a check from the insurance company for the vehicle that was totaled. That money went back into the operating budget itself. So there has been funds coming back for that. And as far as the vehicle itself, one of the officers at the task force, the gasoline that he uses is fully covered by the DEA. We don't pay for any gasoline for that officer while he's on loan. The points of having the officer assigned there. Number one, of course, is seize money. And I'll get into that in the bottom in a second. The biggest thing. The second is the training that he receives, not only the on-the-street surveillance that's above what we do here in Maywood. It's a lot involved, a lot of techniques, and a lot more involved than the simple road cop would do here in Maywood. The other point that we also use, and we've had 2 investigations in Maywood of a higher caliber, and we have tapped into the DEA with their resources and using some of their equipment that's really not available to any municipality or from the county, that was installed and monitored and maintained by us. But again, it was all the DEA equipment that was used that we wouldn't have access if we didn't have an officer on loan there. The seized funds, which is at the bottom. Always a question, it always comes up with, oh, we don't have this, we don't have that. To date, the officer has been involved in drug cases and seized $438,652.02. To date, we have received $142,140.61, with approximately $300,000 pending. Now, are we earmarked we're going to get that? I would probably say yes. When are we going to get it? That I don't have an answer for. I believe one case is coming up within a month that we'll have funds from that, and the additional ones will be forthcoming. So it's not like it's just paper money, it's not there. It's just when are we going to be receiving it. So for that point, that people don't believe it, that money will come to the Borough of Maywood. With the funds that we received so far, we have made purchases from that. Number one, of course, being the salary of the officer that we just hired, which the starting salary was approximately $45,000, but there were the benefits, there were college credits included, which brought up to about $69,000. So there's ample money in a DEA trust fund to pay for that officer to fill the slot while Officer Smith the officer is assigned to the DEA task force. So there was actually money in the account that would have paid for a full 2 years that the replacement officer could have been hired while the officer was assigned to the DEA task force. In addition, what we've done with that, we've replaced our duty weapons, UMP carbine that we've had. We've purchased a second automatic license plate reader, which you'll see on the patrol cars. I think I explained that, but as the patrol vehicle is driving down the road, it's automatically running license plates. We found stolen license plates, we found stolen cars, to include the numerous wanted people, the suspended license, the unlicensed vehicles. So that itself has benefited towards the Borough of Maywood. We placed flashlights. We had to pay for necessary auditing for that account. You don't have to cost it out, but part of the agreement is that we have an internal audit come in, and that account is all justified. Best cover, we also could use that when you purchase it for buy money for the street-level narcotics activity that we have going on in Maywood, and again, the overtime. So I basically want to let you know that the money is there, that the officer is on loan. We now currently have backfilled the officer in that one spot, which, again, that vacancy was creating overtime on that shift, so we've cut down on the overtime. So I don't know if anybody has any other questions about that.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple questions, Chief. On the cost side, what would you estimate the cost have been for the officer that's on assignment, the salary that's overtime?
I would say probably $140,000
Per year.
per year, and that's just an estimate. But again, let me just say, we can talk about his salary while he's there, but I talk about positions. Whether he is in Newark or whether he is in Maywood, he's receiving that money. Yes, he is in Newark. He is doing a job function for the DEA task force. His position is currently filled, and there's not any cost to the borough. So there's no outlay, there's no cost, there's no loss to the borough, because we're receiving the money back from the trust fund.
Right, but I mean, we're at the point now where the contract is up for renewal, so roughly speaking, we're about, 23 months into the 24-month agreement that we made.
Yes.
We've only had that replacement officer for a month.
Exactly.
So we're still behind from a balance standpoint, so.
Oh, definitely behind, absolutely.
Right, so and I know the other thing that we had talked about, you and I, and I'll share that with the council, I asked the chief to look into possibly the impact of that shortage to the chief's overtime budget, and we're talking with the CFO, who's agreed that was a number that's very hard to extract, so I don't want to get into that rabbit hole. But we also understand that there's an option to replace the officer, to actually send somebody else out and bring the officer that's there now back so that the town may benefit from his experience. Can you talk about why your position is that we keep the same officer there?
A couple of reasons. The first one being is that the officer who's assigned was the one who came forward to me and was the initial surge to get into this program. He was the one who made all contacts, made all the necessary phone calls, found out about the program, did all the homework. First of all, so he's the one who initiated into Maywood. The second thing is the fact of the training that this officer's got is, as I said, quite a bit. And he spent probably the first couple of months, 6-8 months, there doing the training. During that time period, and you'll notice the seizure when he first started was minimal because he was more involved in training than he was on the streets and getting involved in investigations. So there was a little bit of lapse there. So now if somebody else goes in, they're going to be having to take this training. We're going to have that lapse again, and possibly any type of funds coming in for the seizures.
Okay. Do we have the option of agreeing to send the officer back, sign the agreement, and send the officer back? Do we have the option to bring him back to Maywood at any point?
If there's any time where there's a hardship in the borough of Maywood, if I run into a situation where I have 3 officers who are sick, injured, there's an absolute hardship.
Retired.
I don't know if they're saying a hardship, but they're talking about like an immediate hardship. Retirement is something that is pretty well set. I can call that officer back for a period of time to start filling the shift. And it's not a long period of time, but it's something like a short-term agreement.
And then vice versa, can we defer on the renewal and then at a later date decide that we do in fact want to renew it?
Probably not. Probably not, because it's a not prestige, but it's something that a lot of municipalities look forward to try and get an officer in there because of the benefits of the program itself. East Rutherford has 2 officers assigned to the program. They were lucky to get 2 officers into it. We just happened to have the right contact at the time with the officer who's on loan there, who one of the guys put a good word in for him, and we were able to get our foot in the door.
Is that East Rutherford or Rutherford?
East Rutherford.
That's it from my street, 50 minutes.
Chief, we weren't able to take on a replacement officer for a serious reason, correct? A serious financial reason. We would have had to budget additional funds at that time for the hiring of the replacement officer. Is that correct? In other words, he left.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have the funds from the DEA. If we replaced him at that point, we would have been able to use the funds that we eventually got, $143,000 to pay, correct?
Yeah.
Now we have the $143,000 going forward, but 2 years ago we didn't have it.
We didn't have it initially, but we did start getting it shortly afterwards, and I'm sure we could have taken the money from the fund and put it back into the operating budget.
Whenever that timing is, and I was never clear on that timing on when we received the funds. For 2 years, we received $143,000, or roughly $70,000 a year. Okay?
Yes.
Is that correct? Now, what does it cost us, fully factored, okay, for a police officer for 1 year? Average, just average it out.
We just said we had the officers receiving $69,000 a year.
That's the average in your department, or?
No, I don't have the average in the
I'm
department.
not asking about the man
Oh, no, I'm
who
not-
was hired. I'm asking,
No, I don't have the average for the officers,
okay.
because the officer who's coming in replacement is at bottom step. I'm not hiring an officer at a medium
Okay, that's
medium
fair.
grade.
That's fair. But that's the reason, if I understand it, the administration and the finance of this going back on why the Borough of Maywood did not immediately hire onto staff, because it was into the operating budget of the police department that we would have had to do that, if I recall correctly, okay? And that was the reason we didn't do it. Now, we're in it 2 years and we have $143,000, and we have another 300.
Yes.
Do it.
Yes.
Do it. Okay, I'm just trying to work my way through this whole overtime
Yeah.
situation. The question, well, I won't ask you the question because I don't think the question is valid at this point. But I may ask you personally, but I'm not going to do it to you publicly. That's it, thank you.
Chief, what is more of a clarification that of an explanation that you already gave, just so I understand this properly? Because you would think, or my initial thought would be to send a second officer there to expand the training in many forms that they would have to execute. But as you're saying that if we send a second officer, they would need to be retrained. Therefore, this one is at a level that he's still actively in the
Yes, because it's...
and so in the search procedure,
Yeah.
what he does, but the other one would not, because he would need to be
Yes.
trained up.
Once you start going to the federal level, the laws change, the rules change, the way you apply the law, the way you search, the way you apply the search warrants, the way you interview techniques, and the way you handle everything is a lot different than we do at municipal level.
Okay. So therefore, both from a professional and from a finance perspective, it makes more sense to maintain this officer there because he's already there.
In my opinion, yes.
Okay. Secondly, what, if any, constraints do we have on the use of the monies that are brought back because of this?
I don't have the guideline, but it's used for anything for the municipal police level that we could use for any type of investigations. It can be used for municipal projects, for any type of drug enforcement, community programs. I'm sorry, I'll get you the list. I thought I distributed, but I'll get you a list of what you can apply the funds for.
Can we use this money to, whatever we have to hire another officer?
We could hire another officer if we were at a cable organization, which is 24 officers. We could hire a 25th officer.
We would have to have a full complement before they let us...
Yeah, we looked at that. Yeah, we looked at that.
Okay.
We have to be our cable organization, then we can hire an additional officer at a one-year time period.
One more question, and then, before, the money that's kind of in escrow, do you have any idea approximately over what time span we might receive? Approximately almost $300,000.
That I don't.
A year, 2 years, 3 years?
There's absolutely none, no.
No, there's
Depends
none.
on when those cases are adjudicated,
Yeah.
and then the money starts coming
Now,
to us.
I have to go back to this. Part of the reason why I voted yes last time, so we would have an officer go out there, learn certain things, get certain training, and then come back and share it and improve our police force and the way
Yes.
we do things. So if we leave them out there, we don't get that benefit. And then you opined just now, which causes me concern, that the way they do searches and seizures at the federal level are different than how we do it here. And my understanding of the law on search and seizures, et cetera, are the same. So perhaps we do need to bring these police officers back to train our police officers.
No, I believe your federal laws, and I'm not that well versed, but the federal laws are a little different as applying to, putting GPS on motor vehicles that they're searching, that they're following, the following techniques of them, where they can go, their jurisdictional boundaries. I think it's more involved in the federal level.
Also, if I'm not mistaken, Chief, I think one of the things is that we do right now, there are times when he's been
Yes.
involved in things, so it's not like he's not helping us right now.
Oh, no, not at all.
So,
Like I said, we've called him in, and we've had 2 investigations in Maywood alone that he's involved in.
yeah, well, that's why I wanted to bring it up, because you raised that point, so
Yeah.
he's already participating, so to speak.
And again, he's also, the DEA has a much larger type of data bank of information on criminals, of drug activities, and drug traffickers that we have, and the officers, when they're on a motor vehicle stop with somebody who's above shaky, they're able to call him, and he's able to search those names in the data bank on a federal level, and it helps them because they can see if there's any type of high-level traffickers even moving through Maywood. Not that they're living in Maywood, but if they're even traveling through Maywood, or what they're actually even doing on our area.
Of course, it did, you have easier access to a larger...
Yeah, larger data bank of information.
More police and-
Yeah. Yes, sir.
I share the councilwoman's concern on the individual not coming back to me. Would the DEA entertain if we proposed another police officer to the DEA?
Basically, they probably do what we'd want to do. They wouldn't be happy about it because you now bring them a green officer that they have to start fresh with and start all over again with the training, again with all the report writing and everything else.
We're in so you're proposing to us that we enter into another 2-year agreement?
Yes.
Is that correct? What happens 2 years from now? The officer is a Maywood officer, a good officer.
Mhm.
We all agree on it, okay? His value increases daily with
Mhm.
this additional training and
Yeah.
experience, okay? So 2 years from now, a year from now, he joins the state police. He goes, works in Ridgewood or someplace that pays police officers more. I don't know. You know? And I'm saying to myself, it's terrific for him, and it's good. It's been good for us. I'm not going to
No.
argue. You know, and say, fine, he's helped us out a couple of times and everything else. But he's our guy. And I don't mind putting the guy out. We used to call it mobility assignments, okay, where I work. Give a guy a shot for a year, give him a shot for, normally it was a year assignment. Go do something different because it's going to be good for you. After the year, we got him back, okay? Because he was a more valued employee. And he would be a more valued police officer here in Maywood. He could be the future of the department, okay? So I don't want, I didn't vote for it the last time, as you know, okay, because I had more of the financial concerns than these concerns. These are real. This is a man who could be, the next one of the leaders in the department. He has that ability, or he wouldn't be with the DEA. It's enhanced his resume. I'd like to see that training brought back to the borough. Give them somebody else, and put this back on even keel. That's my view.
Well,
I'll be the way I vote again.
Yeah. I'll just tell you right now, number one, the officer who's assigned there is a homegrown Maywood person, still lives in Maywood, his heart is in Maywood, his family's in Maywood. He's not, and of course the concern is he going to stay there with the federal task force or with the DEA itself? Absolutely not. And this is the type of program where you can do your time but make a career out of it? No, because it's too much of a burden when it starts coming with your family life and, at 3 o'clock in the morning you get a phone call, we're watching a tractor trailer, but then somebody, get down here right away. So, is it going to be a career? Is he going to make a career out of that? Absolutely not. Is he going to be able to come back and go to a Ridgewood or some other municipality? No, because any other municipality is not going to be able to pay him at his step that he's at right now. And you pretty well know that, where if I'm going to take an officer, we just took an officer who had experience from another municipality, and we started him at the bottom, and he knew it was going to be at the bottom. Municipalities don't hire police officers and start them off at the top step. So combined with the fact that his heart is in Maywood, homegrown in Maywood, and the fact that he's not going to be anywhere near the type of salary that he has working in Maywood, that officer's here to stay.
Mayor, if I might, I think that just to bring it to light, both parties, DEA and the borough, can get out of this agreement within 30 days' notice to the other party. So though, we're saying it's a 2-year agreement, something could happen on either side of this that would end it before. So this is not 2 years and you're stuck with 2 years. Something should happen either with the particular officer or with this council or any other council or the DEA. They have a 30-day window to say, we're out of this. So, that gives you...
We have to have a reason to do that.
Well, of course you do, but I'm saying it,
So
but it's not a given, but my point is...
We have an acceptable reason to
Right,
yeah, well,
right,
it's
but
not.
I think that also gives you a little bit more room to think about this, that you're not, the idea of hiring another police officer has to be, a hardship, et cetera. Things do happen, things that nobody can really foretell because nobody knows something about somebody's health or their family's health or any other number of reasons that could create a situation that, you don't think about today when you're talking about the agreement. It's just life.
What happens 2 years?
Well-
We're sitting here, we're going through the same discussion.
Right.
I'm going to revisit it in 2 years from now. I'm going to revisit and see if the finances came in to support it, where we are with the department. So I can't say anything for 2 years from now.
One quick question. Has any of our police officers, have any of our other police officers expressed an interest or desire to go to the DEA for a while?
I've had a couple officers express interest that they do want to go do that assignment, yes. Right now, some of them are on other tests within the department. But yes, it is a nice position to be in, and some officers have expressed interest. They sat down and talked about the commitment that has to be made. No, I haven't sat down with anybody like that. Again, because it's not, you're not on a set schedule where you're working, you know your days you're working, you know your days you're not. 1 week you're sitting in the office doing it, and the next week you're sitting on a wiretap and you're sitting in an office. The next one you're driving and you're sitting in watching surveillance in Jersey City or Newark someplace.
And doctors did our officers get seized, and we're basically out of the... They all get seized.
No, I'm just thinking this.
Valid, or can we send another guy?
We can send another guy if we want to. And again, I have to commend the officer who was there, because when the officer was involved in that accident, he was injured. And we really don't have light duty within the police department, but even though he still was in his therapy for his pain, he still went in and did the work that he could. At the time they were on a wiretap, so he was able to go in and he was able to sit and fulfill his commitment. And again, his theory was he wanted to be involved, so we would get involved with the seizures with the drug case and keep the funds coming back into the borough.
One quick question. Several years ago, I know there was an officer or two that was very interested in starting a K-9 unit.
Yes.
Is there a possibility that any of these seizure funds can be used for that? I know
Absolutely.
There's a lot of startup costs involved and training involved in that. Is that interest still there?
The interest is still there, the funding is still there, and actually, originally we were looking at the funding through the monies that we have with the prosecutor's office with their seized funds. So, and again, it comes down to the manpower issue of being able to send them to the training.
How long is that training, Chief?
I'm not sure. I want to say, I believe it's 3 months, and it's a two-tiered system because the dog gets trained in one aspect, whether it be, it's a dual-aspect dog, and it will be for tracking and for narcotics. So it starts off with the first part of the training, and I believe it's tracking, or it could be vice versa, and then from there, it comes on a road, it works for a while, and then it goes in for its second type of training.
While we're on that issue of the dog, I don't have to ask for a second, but my understanding is a municipality has a dog. Other municipalities can't utilize that officer with the dog.
Other municipalities, and quite honestly, because we have an officer in the DEA, if there's a seizure or an investigation with the DEA, pretty much guaranteed, because we're in there, that that dog would be called for any type of DEA activity. Now we have the officer who's on loan, plus if the officer's there with the dog, you get double the money, basically. You'll get 2 forms. So,
Does that work on municipal level as well? Commercial park, even the dog?
yes.
They call the county. I know the county has
Which dog they like better?
Well,
And honestly,
You're talking about a dog working on another case. I'm presuming that if there's a seizure in Rochelle Park,
Yes.
because of Maywood dog.
whatever dog, wherever our dog would go, if there is a type of seizure, they're entitled to a percentage of that seizure. And again, it's all going to come down to, and I'll tell you from the police field, whoever has the best working dog. That's who they're going to call. If you have a dog that a handler who doesn't really worry about his dog, doesn't train his dog all so much, and I'll tell you, because I had a case one time, we had a dog come in, and it didn't smell anything in the car, and about 10, 15 minutes went through the car. I went in, and within 2 minutes, I had the drugs that were seized in the headlight, in the dome light, and the dog couldn't find that. So you know what? We don't call that dog anymore, because we know it's not reliable. You look for reliable dogs, and that's the ones you use. The officer who's expressed interest in this, I know is a very committed officer who will give you 110%.
Is that proposal still valid or active, or?
Actually, just within the past month, I've asked them to look into it and just renew it and see about, the biggest things are training, where to get the dog trained.
Chief, I just think my question on that, I just want to know how long we were going to be without an officer in that instance. How long did that officer be away for training? Obviously, he's got to train with the dog.
Yeah, I'm not sure
How
whether
quick
it's
can we get him back in town?
3 or 4 months, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And again, I wasn't prepared to discuss that, but it is a type of time period.
This is something you're recommending as well?
Yes. And again, our staffing level is somewhat coming back up now, so.
Anybody else have questions on this issue?
There were questions on, any questions on the replacement vehicle?
Well, I don't know if we have time to go into that right now, Mayor. It's up to you.
Does anybody have provide a handout on the...
No, it's not on the vehicle unless you have another one. Yep,
I got a hand up. Just real quick, because there's so much want to beat me up back there. Yeah. We've gone through the process of annually trying to replace 2 of the patrol cars. Usually the patrol car, again, it's a police vehicle, it's on 24/7 most of the time, it's beat up, so it takes a lot of wear and tear. Usually what we do is when we get our patrol vehicles, which you'll see on the second part of the handout, between cars 2 and 6, we replace those cars, put the new cars in the fleet for patrol. The other ones then could move down to the traffic enforcement or the traffic vehicle itself, or if the vehicle is basically in very bad shape, it's just retired. I had a discussion with the Borough Administrator about the cars, realizing that there's an issue now, and instead of the 2 replacement cars, looking for 1 replacement car this year. The manufacturer's not making Fords right now. Again, I have 2 large officers who have to fit in vehicles, so we were looking at the Dodge Chargers that are out there right now, and that's what the price goes for, is for the Dodge Chargers, which I think we've brought up on the resolution already. The car that we're looking to replace, car 6, I have the records from both us and the mechanic, and basically that car should be retired the way it is. It shouldn't be handed down. We should eliminate it from our fleet because of the issues that are going on with it. You'll see there's a lot of brake issues, air conditioning issues, and other issues that are going on with that car. But it's even the borough mechanic's recommendation that that vehicle be retired.
Which vehicle, Chief?
Car number 6. You see actually, the first one is the vehicles, the type of vehicles, the amount of mileage that are on the cars. Of course, car 3 and 4 were cars that we replaced last year. The second page is again the handout of what we use each car for. And then the last page is part of the monthly report where you see the actual mileage that's put on each car for the month.
Approximate cost of the vehicle? 47 with everything?
I think that was for the 2. I think we were talking 1 was about 30.
Yeah, because we're talking about also the radio equipment that has to be changed, the light system and everything else.
What's that? Yeah, I thought it was 30,000.
Was it 26 and change for each one? So maybe it was 30,
Yeah,
30
it
something.
was about 30, I'll give you 32,000
Yeah.
for 1 car. And again, because
And is that fitted out and painted?
Yeah, the problem, it's higher than the last one, is because we've gone to a different style vehicle, a Dodge. Therefore, the cage that's in the back has to be new, the molded rear seat has to be new, the center console, the mount for the MDT sets has to be new, and a couple of brackets all the lights on have to be replaced. And again, if we're going with the Dodge Charger, we're going to stay with them like we do with the Fords, and we can just start recycling all the equipment around in the cars.
What alternative did you look at?
We had the Fords. There's a new Ford that's out. Mixed opinions. I'd stay away from the first prototype model of the Fords. There was a Chevy Impala, which was small. I mean, even a normal officer couldn't fit into it. And they came back out with the Chevy Caprice this year. But again, that had limited space size in it. So basically, it's because of the size, the interior size of the car, which is why we're going with the Chargers.
Charges have been used by police departments for a couple of years.
Oh, yeah, they've been proven, they've been on the road. Originally, again, the first ones had a lot of mechanical problems, but they've corrected a lot of problems in the police field, and they're a pretty reliable vehicle right now. I'm a Ford man myself, but I want to stay away from that Ford, because it's a prototype that just came out. The Ford Intercept, they're calling it.
Thank you.
Questions on this issue?
Okay. Something?
We may have a closed issue.
Yes.
Okay. But at this time, given the public here, why don't we go out of order on the work session item and move to the certificate of recognition to address that issue. Yeah, motion to do that. All second.
There's plenty of seats up front, too, if anybody wants to talk.
All right. Okay, at this time, we have lots of members of the Maywood Dolphin swim team present with us in the audience today. The team this year had 166 members, and they competed in the Bergen 6 League again, and were undefeated again. This is the second undefeated season that they've had, and it's the fourth time that they've won a league title in a row, I believe. Am I correct? All right. Unfortunately, I guess the coaches are not here. They went back to school. They're all back from college. Joe Cosmano, Samantha Sadik, and Kerry Roskowski. Oh, okay. And we have the Parents Association ably represented, and at this time we have a plaque for the team, so if all the team members can come up front. Swim team.
All the taller girls and boys stand in the back. All right, I gotta get this
Excuse me, can I move the microphone? Guys, I'm moving a little closer.
Everybody's got to squeeze in a little bit. Not too many wide-angle lenses out there.
Everybody's good.
Everybody's good?
Wait, what man?
We have a plaque certificate of recognition for the 2012 Maywood Dolphin swim team.
in recognition of the 166 members of the 2012 Maywood Dolphin Swim Team, the team coaches and Parents Association on an undefeated season. Congratulations on winning the Bergen 6 League Championship for the 4th year in a row, for duly representing and making the Borough of Maywood very, very proud. Congratulations.
You can see all the stuff.
Congratulations, everybody. Once again, thank you. Thank you all the parents. Very everybody's
Team members, just stay right there for 30 seconds. Okay, thank you. I just want to, on behalf of the swim team, unfortunately, none of our 3 coaches could be here because they are all back at college now doing what they should be doing. However, this is a first for us as a swim team organization, certainly at least for as long as I've been involved with it now, which is since my daughter was, I think, 5 or 6. But we've been a parent association for the past 8 years, Barbara? And I'd like to introduce the other parent committee members who are here. Familiar to all of you, I'm sure, but we have Barbara Farrell, who is a first. We very much appreciate it, and I think some of the things the coaches would want to say, other than to say thank you, is how proud they are of not just the swimmers who are here, the 50 or so that we have here, but all of the members on the team. What they've done over the past 4 years is 20-0 in dual meets, and if you throw the league championship meets, which they've won, it's 24-0 over the past 4 years. But what I think is most important is they've done that, and over the years as they've done it, the team membership has increased every year. And kids don't come out to swim 5 days a week for an hour and a half in the morning or an hour in the morning when it's nice and cold and rainy and everything else, so that they can say they were part of a team that went 20-0 or 6-0 or 5-0 or whatever the record may be. They come out and they do it because they truly have a good time. It's a major commitment on their part. They have a lot of fun. They've really become a team. You look at them all here in their green with a couple exceptions, that may be, but and they've really grown together as a team, and it's been fun to watch for us as a parent committee, and I think for the rest of the parents. But they've had a great time doing it, and they're proud to put those shirts on that say Maywood and represent our community, which I can tell you, going to 5 of these meets, 6 of these meets every year, they do a phenomenal job of. And if you were to see them there, I know you would all be very proud of them. Proud to wear the shirts, proud to represent their community, and that's really what it's all about, having a lot of fun in the process. So, Mayor, thank you very much, and to the entire council, thank you very much. Now, get out of their way so they can finish conducting their business.
proceed, sir. Sit
Motion to go back in regular order of business.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, back to the, wrapping up the work session. Mr. Matt? Okay, Mr. Valerie, just for the record, Mr. Valerie just left. Situation I need to deal with. All right, we'll go for the on the off the agenda items. We'll go first. Resolutions 117-12, 118-12, 119-12, 120-12, 121-12, and 122-12 are going to be pulled from tonight's agenda, and they will reappear at a later date. Okay, that's all I have on or off the agenda. Councilman Chadwick.
On the agenda, let me just, Resolution 114-12. Okay, this is the resolution approving submittal of a grant application with regard to the Historic Preservation Trust Fund for the Brigham House project. I'm also asking that this item be deferred for further discussion, action possibly at a later date. And let me go into why I'm asking that the council considers what I'm requesting. This is one action of a bigger program, I would assume. In other words, we're just not looking at possible purchase through acquisition, through trust funds and whatever else, preservation trust, unless we had knowledge of an overall municipal program with a public purpose for the use of the project, okay? The use of the building, okay? I don't know what that program is tonight. What will the house be used for? If the borough were to be involved in it, okay? What are the costs involved, okay? And there I'm talking about cost estimates for an overall program here, okay? We go for $200,000 and then it's a matching grant, we're in for $2. Then we have to do things to the building to make sure it's compatible to do the things we want to do. Then we have to operate it. So there are a lot of financial questions here. There's operational questions. So that's one of my concerns. Another concern I have is we've talked here, and we've all been involved this year. It was a very difficult budget year for us this year, 2012. Next year, 2013, is going to be equally as difficult. Okay, I think we all, the administrator, the financial officer, everybody on this up here tonight agrees with that. Now, if we were to go for another $200,000, I'm trying to put that in priority order relative to other projects that we have within the borough. And now I'm talking specifically in that one area of town, okay? We're concerned about the reconstruction of East Hunter, and that's been discussed, and we've had people in here, and I think the council has generally we're looking to solve that problem somehow, okay? Another thing that we've discussed for several years here, and we haven't been able to deal with it, is the northeast corner of Central and Maywood. Those of you that go through that area, we have flooding in that area after heavy storms. It freezes in the winter. We have children that are walking to Maywood Avenue School. That has to be somehow addressed. And we weren't able to do it in the last mayor and council, but it's still a problem that's there that has to be, and it has been discussed here even further. Okay? We're also looking to do streetscape improvements. In fact, I think just within the last month or so, didn't we passed a resolution relative to... A couple of months ago, looking at, all right, let's see, we've done Pleasant Avenue, let's see what we can do in that area, and that's that general support right across the council, okay? So it's those types of concerns. Where does this fit in? What's the program and how are we going to do it, okay? So I'm asking tonight to have somebody or to have to make a decision, because if we don't apply 2 nights by now, August 30th, and commit ourselves to this type of thing, I just think it would be fiscally irresponsible on my behalf to vote in favor of it. So I ask it in that light. Maybe next year we'll have a different view of it. Maybe that preservation trust fund that exists, I know it's been going on for many years, we'll have another bite at the apple, but at that time we would be better prepared to see how it fits into the overall needs of the borough of Maywood. So I rest.
I appreciate the comments, Mr. Savage. As you correctly stated, the application deadline for the Historic Preservation Trust Fund is August 30th on this matter. 279 Maywood Avenue is a piece of property that's been for sale for a long time now, many years actually. The price has continually decreased. The concern of doing this, obviously tonight, making the application for the Bergen County Historic Preservation Trust Fund, which true is a matching fund. I can say this, that with the CFO being here and the administrator, it's not the intention of the borough, obviously, or the ability of the borough, unfortunately, to match the funds themselves. The intention is to try to match it with private funding or another grant and have the match to acquire this property. The property itself, just for brief background, is improved by a dwelling, most of which was constructed in the early 1700s. It's one of Bergen County's last stone houses existing, and back in 2009, the Maywood Historical Committee brought a letter to the Mayor and Council bringing the fact that this property was for sale to the attention of the Mayor and Council and hoping that acquisition could be done. And obviously, funding being what it is, we know that doing it ourselves is really not possible. But the reality of it is this is a deadline that we're operating under for the grant, and my position is that we keep this on the agenda this evening, apply for the grant, and if in fact we are unable to fulfill our obligations and acquire this property through 100% funding or outside funding, well then at the very least the borough could say that it tried. The borough of Paramus recently went through a similar situation where a developer had a piece of property across the street, across from Paramus Road, the Brisky House, which is an old stone house, and they, whatever efforts were made, they were unfortunately too late. The developer there destroyed the building and has lost the history forever. Now Maywood doesn't have too many 300-year-old houses running around anymore. There are probably about 40 of them. Many houses have been destroyed in the past. Our library sits on a piece of property that, for progress' sake, lost a house. So the reality of it is this is, in my opinion, a building that we should make every effort to preserve. And yeah, there's some planning and issues that need to be hammered out. But for the details of getting an August 30th application done in time, I think we need to start the process with that. Again, it is a little backwards doing it that way? Sure it is. But the reality of it is waiting another year, we may not have that option. As I was the planning board attorney previously, last year when this house was still for sale, 2 attorneys contacted me for potential purchases. One looking to subdivide the property, and one looking to turn it into one of the malls. The property itself is about 177 feet wide, and it's 100 feet deep.
60.
In Maywood, that is 3 lots. In the corner of Howcroft Road and Maywood Avenue, last year or year before, a conforming subdivision was approved, and 3 conforming houses were constructed on that lot. So the reality of it is there are people out there willing to do that, to make some money. 2009 November, the last house on the corner of Howcroft and Maywood sold for $490,000. It's pretty high in this market. So there is money to be made by doing that. And there, again, these are conforming lots on Howcroft Road. There were no variances granted. So I'm foreseeing similar fate that could potentially happen to this property. So my recommendation to the council is that we move forward with at least the application, continue the discussions, and lay out the plan on how this is going to be preserved. Because at the very least,
perhaps we drum up some public interest in this property to preserve it. The Paramus house actually did have some public interest in it. There was a moving company, a house moving company that was going to spend $70,000 of their own money to physically move that house to the Borough Community College property. Unfortunately, Borough Community College did not qualify for this Historic Preservation Trust fund, and the time the individual got around to volunteering his services, again, it was too late.
No, just if I might, to answer some of the question, this really is just kind of the bottom piece of the building block. There are two other grants that we are applying for as part of this. One of them is a planning grant through the state, which would address some of what you're talking about, what are we going to do with it, et cetera. And another one is just another small piece. They know we're part of the application. The Historic Preservation Trust knows that we don't have the other money now. They may be the first ones to say, well, come back to us again. But again, it was just a matter of getting the process started to see where we go with it. There are a lot of other pieces. Certainly nobody knows whether we're ever going to get it or not, but we didn't misrepresent anything to the county. The application very specifically asked if you have the rest of the money, funded, and the answer was no. So I just think this is, it's the beginning. One of the other things that you mentioned, that parcel right by the railroad, museum. I know Mr. Kaminsky had brought it to my attention. I didn't know about the flooding. I've spoken to the county. The county is trying to work with me because they tell me it's not them, it's the railroad. So there are a lot of things that have to, be put together with that, I haven't lost sight of it since it was brought to my attention. That could be part of what, at some point, we look for some money to help us fix that whole area, including...
The reality of it is that piece of property right now sits on the state and national register. As a private residence, that doesn't mean anything. As a private residence, you can burn it to the ground tomorrow. What it does do is it prevents a municipal body or a county body from saying, we want to put a street through your building, we're taking it. That prevents, in effect, the widening of Central Avenue unless the property owner says, I'll sell you off the sliver. Now, if they're using it for residential purposes, they're probably not going to want to do that because the house does sit close to the corner to begin with. But the intention is that if there were public funds attached to it in acquisition, or maybe able to get approved for this, then we could...
Mr. Mayor, I'm familiar with the Zabriskie house, Paramus, and the issue there. If I recall correctly, the Zabriskie house was a historical site within an African-American historical context. Is that correct? Just as I read it in the record. Okay, that's all I know about it. I know a little more than that. This is a house that's 300 years old. Is that something like that? It's an old house, and I know that. It's almost as old as I am, I guess. But anyway, but the thing is, the question I have is, what's the historical, other than being an old building? An old building, and there are a lot of old buildings. From where I come, we know there are a lot of them. Now, what's the historical aspect here that going forward? I just thought that, just because it's old, geez, doesn't mean you got to do something about it.
Where you're going with that, Jack?
I know that. I realize that. I know I'm on the little shady ground here, but I say just because it's old.
On them that are from cavemen. Come on. Where you going with this?
Okay, I'm going to rest on that. In other words,
my real fast question is this: are we bound? Should we get this grant? Are we bound to take it? Are we bound to match it? Are we bound by this grant? Should we apply for it?
If you're asking me that question, the answer is
No,
no.
No, we're not.
no, we're not bad. No, because you have to do another resolution at a certain point to say, yes, we accept it. That's true. And you have to, but then you have to, at that point, you better be ready with your $200,000.
We are starting to fall.
All I'm saying is, in these economic times, with the other infrastructure needs in this borough, on sewers, roads, everything else that we're looking at, to go ahead and just because it's an old building.
Jack, we did Fetzer Park, Jack. A matching grant on Fetzer Park, a park that's not used except for Memorial Day.
Excuse me?
We did a matching grant on Fetzer Park.
Fetzer Park is an important part of this borough. It's an important part of the economic, or the value of properties in those areas. It's been there for, ever. That's
Over 300 years?
Well, the reality is the grant is from Bergen County Historic Preservation.
Right.
So we're not going to apply for a sewer grant to that organization.
No, I understand it, but it's still, you guys want to come in at $200,000 somewhere down the line, you're giving an indication to somebody that there's a strong interest within the borough of Maywood to do this. My point is, there's 6 people up here, and the owner of the property that think, the rest of the people in Maywood haven't had an opportunity to express an opinion at all. And you're coming and saying to us...
Tonight. It starts tonight.
I
There is no
understand.
commitment.
But I'm saying, what I'm indicating, okay, you know how I'm voting on it, so...
Okay, please. We want to bulldoze.
We're with you. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. You're very accommodating. Appreciate it.
Anything else, Mr. Fleischman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of bill list items, I'd like to move here a little bit. I see on the bill list, we have a bill payable for GTBM, which I believe is the second or third installment on our e-ticketing plan. And I was hoping for the next work session, the chief or the administrator to provide an update on how the program is working so far this year.
This is
We can have that
right.
next work session.
Absolutely.
That'd be great.
I got a ticket and I didn't get an e-ticket.
What's that? You didn't get one yet?
If there's a parking ticket, you might not get an e-ticket.
I mean, I thought the whole point was that they all have e-tickets,
I don't believe that the specials have the e-tickets. Is that right, Chief? No.
not even the parking
No.
enforcement guy?
Correct, that's what I'm
Just the
Parking
special.
enforcement.
Okay.
That's why I asked for an update. I know the chief had a busy agenda here tonight, so in order to save time, we'll get that maybe next work session. Also on the bill list, Dennis and Maywood Pool, this was probably discussed at last week's meeting, which I was not there, and it was on the amended bill list. The bill to electric company to repair the loss of power in the kitchen. Was that a serious panel issue or wiring issue?
It was a wiring issue. It happened the first weekend. I mean, I think it was the first Saturday, first or second Saturday, where it blew, and it was a wiring issue and a fuse, and it was taken care of.
Good, thank you. Also on the agenda tonight, we have a couple of appointments that are listed here. Basically, with appointment number 1, one of the questions I had was earlier in the year, I think it was discussed that you would assess the needs of the departments and upstairs. I'm assuming that this is part of that plan.
Yes, it actually is. I had actually had a ad in the, what do you call it, the League of Municipalities want ads for a full-time person, and we interviewed, or I read about 50, resumes, and nothing quite struck me. This position is a part-time position, 25 hours, no benefits, no pension, and the gentleman's background is very impressive. He is going to be, quote-unquote, a floater, so to speak. There are a bunch of areas that we need some support. I've had summer help, helping in various, places. And once Mr. Malagier is part of the group, so to speak, and during his 25 hours, I probably next summer won't need any summer help. That's part of my plan, but especially because there were no benefits involved and no pension, I felt that this was a good way to go. It's like everything else, probationary. He will be doing certain things that might look like they're below his professional ability. He had no problem with that. He's going towards getting his certification as a municipal CFO. Which is his business, not ours, but at least that's what he's interested in. So the fact that he's going to be in our environment and learning different things is helpful to him, but at the same time, there are, I don't want to go into any particular personnel names or anything, but, we did have a retirement and another employee leave, and we have another employee who's been ill, and there have been some lapses in the work that's done normally in the things that that particular employee handled. So I'm hoping that this gentleman will help improve all of those services to the borough.
You touched upon one of my next questions. Has an extensive resume, extensive financial background. Are there any specific responsibilities that he would be geared to? Given his background, it's a little surprising that he would want to work part-time.
Well,
in a municipality.
as I said, that was my question to him, and especially because some of the tasks that he is going to be asked to do might be below his stature and perhaps menial in nature. He said that he has no issue with that. He was looking for the municipal experience, and between what he was looking for and what we needed, it looked like a perfect match at a very small cost to the borough.
There's also in the finance department, I know I've asked this question a million times, and the CFO's here. He could probably answer that. We do have another part-time employee that works in there evenings. Some are actually on the bill list as some of the salary or pay or compensation
for that particular
receives,
person.
right? Is this person possibly in place to replace that person, so you don't need that?
Not at this time.
Also along the lines of the appointments, item number 2, I did not have a chance to go on the ancestry.com today, but I just wanted to verify that it's no relation to someone that threw their hat.
No relationship there.
No relationship, just for the record, you're speaking of, there's no relationship to, there's a candidate running for council this year, same last name. There is no relationship, you've investigated that?
Yes.
Thank you, Chief. That is all I have right now, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Oriana, anything on the agenda?
I had the pleasure of being the target at the annual night out. We sat under a water balloon and the wonderful youth of Maywood had a great time. And the wonderful youth of Maywood had a great time dumping me effectively. I drank a lot of water that night. I had a wonderful time, and I just want to say I received a thank you note from Officer Mary Tuchak, and that I really appreciate it, thoroughly appreciate it. I hope next year more people will come to the night out. Maybe I'll do it again.
Dr. Meglio, anything on the agenda?
No.
Councilman Bryant, no?
No, sir.
Okay. Motion to adjourn and go into the regular order of business.
Motion to adjourn the work session. Motion to adjourn the work session and complimentary motion to convene the regular council.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Mayor, perhaps a 5-minute recess, if possible? I think they made sure.
No?
I don't see him out there.
Lost her.
Anybody will need prayer.
Yes.
Silent prayer for a moment.
All right, then we can go on to the, continue on the agenda. On the proclamation, which is presentation, there is no public hearing on any ordinances. At this time, we'll be meeting to the public. Anybody from the public?
John Brown, 41 Stelling Avenue. Concerning the issue that Jack brought up, again, is it the intent of the municipality not to use any public funds on the matching grant?
Not to use any Maywood funds.
Maybe taxpayer funds. Okay. If we do take over that property, the maintenance and upkeep of it would be borough expenses.
It's interesting, you know, and
That's a
to
question.
Mr. Savage's, point, we will have to flush this issue out further because many municipalities will find themselves in similar situations. We're being one of them, Mawa being another one that maintain these quasi-public buildings. They operate in a scenario where they maintain the property or they own the property and they lease back the building to a nonprofit entity or a historic society that is unrelated to the borough for a nominal fee, $1 or $100 a year, whatever. And then that group maintains
effect. But obviously, those are issues that are going to have to be quickly resolved and quickly flushed out before any determination is made on at least this initial grant application. And I think if they're not, at the time the grant comes back, then I would recommend that we do not accept the grant.
Yeah. As it stands right now, it's taxable, it's rateable building.
It is.
And, I looked it up, I think we're getting about $4 grand for it, so.
I think the municipality pulls about
4,200, yeah, something like that.
Correct.
So that has to go into consideration.
It does, and, the other side of that coin is if it remains a single-family dwelling, it is occupied by a family,
Yeah.
say there's an
We're
individual who
paying
has
for
5
the-
children and occupies the family.
Right.
We educate those 5 children.
Or the other way of thinking, if somebody comes in and turns it into 3 lots,
And you got 3 houses.
yeah. Okay. Thank you for the info.
Anybody? Mr. Richards?
Along those lines,
Name and address?
my name and address, Tom Richardson, 347 Golf Avenue. You might remember. Anyway, I'm sorry, I thought Father Kevin was leaving, that's why I was pointing.
He did, but it wasn't only the work.
Number one, I think that one of the things you should do to research this house is have the building inspector go through that house and see what it's going to cost to bring it up to some kind of standard. So, that house has been there forever, and especially that corner, as a former first aider, you should know that some of the worst accidents that I've ever been involved in have been on that corner, okay? One where a person was a pedestrian was almost killed because of that tree.
By far, I think
tree's gonna come
that's
down.
probably the worst intersection in town.
Absolutely, that tree has got to come down. It's a healthy tree, but it's
There's a few trees there.
It is a hazard to navigation. Okay? The Ambrose Light Chip Jack, they would have taken that right out. Okay? The other thing, first of all, I think that you should keep in mind what the chief said about maintaining the police cars. I said this at the last time. Please don't let that fall apart. The intersection, Jack, I brought it up at the last meeting. You should be looking at the county when they repave Maywood Avenue to eliminate that drainage problem. That has got to be done. Do you have any idea what the taxes are on that property? It's 3 lots.
Right now, the total taxes on that property is about $11,000.
Okay.
The municipal share of that is about $41.86.
Okay, well, that's a number that's got to be done.
Absolutely.
And quite frankly, if you don't get the dollars, I'm sorry for those folks, they've tried to sell that house forever.
Absolutely, and I think that's the intention of the borough, is that if we don't get them, private funding or grant funding, then we've tried to raise the awareness.
And that's the reason this was brought up without prior discussion, because of the time constraints on it?
Pretty much.
Okay. Was this in discussion prior to, how did this come up all of a sudden saying, let's buy it?
Quite frankly, I think the discussion of the grant being out there, and as a former member, and I guess still member of the Historic Committee has always had their eye on this, as evidence in their correspondence with prior council.
I don't think that the railroad has anything to do with that property at all. The other thing, 2 quick things. I brought up several months ago to the council with respect to, at the time I was still on a first aid squad, but firemen and first aiders of my age and slightly younger that are still running and still making calls, they should be tested at least once every other year, heart, blood pressure, the whole enchilada, because firemen and first aiders are dropping all over the place because of their age and their health conditions. I don't want to see that happen to them or the borough. The last thing, I still don't understand why the minutes, especially for this year, tonight you've got July 10th, I think, on here. You're accepting the minutes for July 10th, and there are only 3 minutes on the blog, and if you go in to try and get the minutes from this year or late last year, you can't read them.
But, no, we don't. What, on the website, we are in transition for a new website, and that's what the current webmaster has some personnel issues, let's put it that way, she's unable to do that.
Well, how long is this going to take?
But, number 1. Number 2, our meetings are on the website. You can actually look and hear the
But yes, but...
verbatim.
But that might be true, howsoever,
Mm-hmm.
it is the document that stands as the Bible, okay? The videotape is one thing, but the
No, I
minutes are the
understand that,
Bible.
but you actually can hear
Be that as it may, Gene, and I appreciate that, and I'm aware of
Continue our
that.
efforts, Mr. Richards, to
Okay,
get them.
but we're talking, if we've been in conversation with the webmaster for the last 8 months, I think it's time you rattle his cage. Thank you, sir.
Respectfully, the minutes that are printed of the meetings are not verbatim minutes. So the videotape on YouTube is the accurate and complete.
And anybody, you know, anybody could come to the Borough Clerk's office, request, you can email it once
You
they're
don't,
approved.
the council does not move on the videotape. The council moves on the minutes, okay? The minutes are the document, the Bible. It is the history. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Rob?
No, before you go, one other thing. As a local municipality, and I was going to talk to Jimmy about this later, okay, that purchased for $1,500, okay, a unit that you put into a manhole, okay? You block off a manhole downstream. You put in the same kind of smoke that the firemen use in their smoke tests that the Rotary actually bought for the fire department, for them to test. It will show you in an area where the infiltration is. As a matter of fact, this town had, local town, had the smoke coming through people's leaders because their leaders going into it. There are any number of that. It's $1,500. You can go to work. You can find out if you'd like to later. I don't want to mention the name because he'll get upset. Okay.
I'm sure they'd be glad to loan that.
You rent them for $2,000 a week. You can buy one for $1,500, and you can do a program with the Department of Public Works that will show you where the I&I is in front of the homes, and you can do it inexpensively, and you can save us a shekel or two.
Thank you.
We're all about saving shekels. Thank you. Sure.
With a calculator.
Good evening, Bill Robinson, 54 Edel Avenue. How are you? I want to thank the chief for his presentation this evening, but I have a couple of questions. Do we have...
The police chief?
Well, not of the police chief, but I think with the
No, are you talking about the police chief or the fire chief's presentation?
police chief's
Okay,
presentation. Relative to the DEA officer, right? I understand we received $143,000 over a 2-year period. Right? What has been the cost to the borough of that officer during that 2-year period? Do we have that figure?
I would mention, I guess, the salary.
Right.
Salary, fringes, overtime?
Overtime, correct. I would presume you're talking somewhere around the range of $145,000 a year.
The number we've been using.
Yeah, I thought the chief said 140.
He did.
Okay. Just want the arithmetic, right? One of those things, you make it up in volume, right? But the difficulty is that it's cost you twice as much as you brought in. And you should keep that into account. The second issue, and again, this is something that I was a little bit shocked to hear about. When this was originally proposed, my understanding is that this money could be used to offset the salary of a replacement officer. What I heard tonight was that it can only be used for that purpose if we hire the 25th officer?
The second.
The second officer. The first
one
officer
is-
is being offset right now.
Okay.
The replacement that was just hired is utilizing that money.
Okay.
If there is a second officer to go simultaneously into the program, then you would have to reach the maximum.
And do we have 21 or 22 on the staff now?
21. 22 was Eric?
Not 21.
21 was, I think, the last time I had asked, right?
21.
Okay. So, simple arithmetic, that means we've got to hire 4 police officers before we get that money. That's an enormous cost. So, again, I'm a little bit concerned about that. Second issue deals with this historic preservation grant. I understand that this will take some time. I'm suggesting that if the mayor and council are truly serious about preserving that house, there is a way to do that under state statute, which is to create a historical preservation ordinance, establish a historic preservation commission, actually put teeth in that ordinance that prevent it from being torn down, remodeled, right? Again, you have that ability without $200,000 today. So if you're really serious about preserving that building, you should consider that. Finally, the third point, Mr. Mayor, can you give me a status of what's happening on the proposed development on Route 17, the Velocity 17 building?
Sure. There's an economic development committee that has been meeting. I, along with the borough attorney, have met with a couple of developers who have expressed interest in working on that property. The only properties that are currently, I should say, not being developed or not being utilized to the, I guess, the highest that everybody would hope for is the Kin Properties, which owns Sears. Sears building. There's a vacant lot, used to be a Sunoco station. And I believe that's, and you have the furniture, Maywood Furniture Company, which is a warehouse also on that property. The parcel that is currently the Velocity 17, or vacant Velocity 17, and the Mitsubishi dealership has been approved. They've come in for demolition permits. They are starting improvements on that parcel. But the three main parcels that are still kind of out there, there have been actually developers within the last couple of months who've expressed an interest in working with Kin or working alone to develop the Sears property. Sears, as you recall, is a tenant there. They're going to be a tenant there until 2016. I would presume as we get closer to that date, it becomes a little more economical for the landlord to buy Sears out of that lot. At least it's my understanding from conversations with them that it is not their intention to renew the existing lease with the current tenant. So there are still people looking around. Obviously, it's a big piece of property. It's one of the biggest still open on 17. We've been pushing it to local developers and as many people as will listen. As I did in the past working with Mr. Richards, that has continued. So, hopefully the hospital, people affiliated with the hospital medical uses are starting to see Maywood in that corridor as a potential area to develop. We have another parcel on 113 West Essex Street that is currently being redeveloped by a series of doctors that are using it as for medical offices. So hopefully the whole medical team will start to catch on, and the developers will see that area as potentially Essex Street as well. We've had discussions with property owners there and other people who are interested in working with property owners along Essex Street. So there are things that are going on. Hopefully we'll get there.
Is Hackensack Hospital involved in that development on Velocity 17?
Velocity 17, they will be only affiliated to the extent that they will be referring cardiac patients. They're not an owner, they're not an operator.
Still pay taxes.
It's a private entity that's still going to be paying taxes on that property. They are going to be affiliated with, they'll be sending cardiac rehab people there, they'll be sending people to physical therapy. It will also be open to the public as a, I hate to use the word gym, but for that type of use.
Well-being center.
Health and wellness center. A classic, but it'll be open to the public. It's a private organization that is running.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Anybody else? Hang on.
Just wanted to follow. Nope.
Just speak up, Derek.
Nope. Derek Eisenberg, 121 Bell Avenue. I just wanted to follow up on the questions that Mr. Rupp just asked about the health club going in there. So Hackensack has no ownership at all in this facility? Do they share in any of the revenue from it? Is there? So if they don't, why were they here? Why were they at the planning board meetings?
I think they were here to explain it. I think they were at those planning board meetings. I think they were here to explain their affiliation with it through referrals.
So their sole affiliation is just to have a facility to send patients. They get no profit of any kind from it. They have no ownership in it. They have...
It's my understanding of it. You feel free to contact the hospital and
your investigation, but our understanding from it as a planning board and as the governing body last year and this year was that they are not the owner. They are not affiliated with any ownership.
But at the final vote, you recused yourself and sat in the audience because you thought you might have a conflict because your firm does work with Hackensack Hospital. If they had no profit or anything of any kind, why did you recuse yourself?
Because as you'll recall, I think you were at the meeting, that I put on the record and the attorney actually for the applicant indicated that he did not believe there was a conflict, but I stepped down because I did not want to even begin to go down the path of an appearance of an impropriety and get into a political discussion about that. So that's
I know
why
you
I
said
did.
politics.
No, I said at the meeting. That's why I stepped down.
Okay. And was anyone aware that they were filing a tax appeal when the variance was being granted?
You recall that?
I don't recall. Were you aware?
Yes, I recall that it came up.
So there were several tax appeals scheduled for tonight. I guess you took them off the agenda for tonight?
Yes, correct. Yes. Okay.
Why were they taken off the agenda tonight?
Because they're going to be discussed at the latest time.
Publicly, or you just haven't decided to settle them? or-
They'll be resolved publicly as all tax appeals are.
Well, so what was the particular reason for taking them off the agenda tonight?
I think it was it.
I specifically called the mayor late in the day. I said, this is the first time I've seen these items. They hadn't been discussed. I've been accustomed for the last 9 years or 8.5 years of my experience on the council that tax appeals, particularly those of a commercial or industrial nature, and all tax appeals would have been discussed in advance in some depth with the attorney, with the tax assessor. And I said, we haven't had the opportunity to do that. We just got these. They're in different formats than we've seen before. And I said to Mr. Mayor, I said, I suggest that we have more time to digest and reflect and be more knowledgeable. Secondly, this is a new council, and part of my learning over the years was that they were very helpful in terms of being more knowledgeable about how these things move and the issues involved. So that was the reason. So the mayor, he said it makes sense to him, and that's why it was pulled there. There was no, and normally those would be, because there's potential litigation involved, as you know, in all tax appeals. Is that correct? I mean, litigation could result somewhere along the line. So many of them were discussed in closed session, if I recall correctly, the detail of it and the nuances and things of that nature. So with that, I rest, but I'm the guy who asked that they be deferred.
Okay, thank you. On the historical property, has the borough obtained a survey for the property?
Survey wasn't required for this. An appraisal was required for the, and a photo of the tax map, pardon me, showing where that property is situated.
With the building sitting where it presently sits, could a lot be subdivided off of the existing parcel without moving the building?
I don't believe that where it sits now, you might be able to get one lot, but there's a portion of the train station's property that actually jogs in a little bit on the tax map. So you may not get a full 50-foot south of the building if you're going down Maywood Avenue. That is probably the best case scenario you would have, is to sliver off a piece near the, obviously, near the train station. You're not going to go behind it, because I don't think there's not enough room. You create variance conditions by doing that. Lot size, setbacks.
Right, because that might possibly offset some of the expense.
To spin it off later and maintain it.
To acquire it, right, and also create another rateable to replace the rateable that's lost.
Right.
So, also you had mentioned this Brisky house being moved. Maybe a possible analysis of moving this house so that 2 lots are left, moving it closer to the train station, for example, and then leaving the 2 lots next to it up to the corner, and then selling those off to offset some of the expense. Of course, you'd have to do a comparison of the moving versus the extra lot that's created, but just for the record, I'd love to see the property preserved, but I don't want a penny of taxpayer dollar going towards it.
Sure. Thanks. Anybody else?
Ed Kaminsky, 108 Stelling Ave. Ms. Stern?
Yes.
Can you clarify a comment you made earlier about flooding near tracks? That was a railroad issue?
Yes, when I called the county, which I told you I was going to do, and I was in touch with their road supervisor of roads, he said to me that as far as he knew, within 25 feet, it was a railroad issue, and that he was going to help me work through that, and that's where we left off.
So the road is a railroad issue of the railroad?
Well, because of what you explained to me, and I wasn't physically with him, I was on the telephone trying to explain what you told me about the flooding.
Right.
And, the depression and things that we mentioned.
Yeah, these are sewers.
I did my best. As I said, did my best to explain that on the telephone. He was supposed to send somebody out to take a look at it as well. He's not gotten back to me since then.
Okay, just so the council knows, when we get a good rain, it floods north of Central Ave. And
From the tracks?
Yeah. It's been getting worse over the last year. The county was out there around December doing some temporary repairs on the sewers, and I was told the sewers are sinking. Now there's cracks developing in the sidewalks down there, so basically the street is sinking. Okay, I wouldn't constitute that being a railroad problem. I think it's just a roadway problem. We've got a grade crossing that's been maintained, upgraded recently in the last few years. So this is north of that, 20 feet all the way up to Central. It may have something to do with the property that everybody's talking about, 279, because there are no curbs on that street. It's sinking, plain and simple. So I don't think this is really, I'm not defending the railroad. If it is their problem, they'll fix it.
You're saying the water...
Okay, but I think it's a county...
Where's the water start? Really?
There's a water problem.
So
if you look during a rainstorm, I mean, you get it up there starting at the library. There aren't any sewers going south.
But the flooding issue there, where does it start and come in?
It stops at the tracks because you got elevation at any grade crossing, but that area is dropping.
So
and you're seeing it now.
Like the tracks is a pond, basically?
It can be. I've seen it go up past the flagpole. I've seen it go into Mr. Finch's backyard. There was one time, there was a pond back there. You can skate it on it in the winter. So it will stop sometimes before the station and go into that backyard. So that's another consideration when you look at that house. You got to look at the drainage issues. Okay, on to the house. What registers are that on? Is it on? It's on state. It's on federal.
Yeah, in 1983 it went on federal.
Did anybody apply to put it on federal? Because you don't naturally get it put on federal unless somebody applied.
I would presume that it's there.
So
In 1980 it went on the state. In 1983 I believe it went on the...
Okay, to my knowledge, the only thing it was on was county. All right, because that was an automatic in '82. They put all the stone houses in the county on. Okay, just to bear in mind, the station does have infringement being on National Registered Station and the locomotive, 200-foot radius around both objects. The house is not endangered, so infringement-wise, if somebody was to move in, want to manipulate that, I know a lawyer's going to tell me that it's not going to hold up in court, but it does. Okay, I know this for a fact. When you're dealing with historic properties, I've dealt with them for 20-something years. Right, so, I mean, that's good to know. If the town doesn't get it, we can use station infringement rules. Just a couple of questions on it. Yearly operating costs, has anything been calculated? Okay. Just in my mind, as a taxpayer, you combine that with a loss of rateable, you could be looking at $20,000 a year.
That's if the municipality keeps it.
That's if the municipality keeps it. Correct. And you spoke earlier about potentially this would be used for nonprofits. So in other words, you're looking to rent it?
As I said, some other towns have done similar situations where they lease back to a historical society.
Right.
Of that nature. I think Park Ridge does it also. The church in Park Ridge does have a historic, the Pascack Valley Historic Society.
Where was
Saddle River does it, and Ottawa does it with the old
building used to be, I think, a library at one time.
Where would the revenue generation come from then if it's leased to?
They would be responsible for it. We're responsible for grants and private funding,
Okay.
kind of like the way I guess you guys do it.
Well, we're a little
I mean,
different.
you have a bigger
We're different.
backup, behind you, with the railroad, that I presume helps you in some way. Okay.
No, there's no monetary.
No maintenance issues that they help you with? or-
No. No. Maybe if we need some rock down there, they'll throw us some rock,
Right.
but they structurally, no. Nothing, no dollars have exchanged hands.
Right.
It's been totally on volunteer grants,
Right.
donations. Okay, and as far as the application, you might want to check the name Romaine. I've never seen it spelled that way. Okay,
It's not the
the
same
resolution.
Not the same street, Romaine.
I've never seen it spelled that way in regard to that house, so just, you might want to double check. If you're going to put it in right. Maybe I'm wrong, but
Check the old Bergen County.
that might be an automatic rejection if it's not spelled right. Also, I can offer my house too if you're looking to buy houses. I did find an arrowhead in my backyard, so it's historically significant.
Good on.
Thank you.
Is it 300 years old?
Mr. Richards, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I should have brought this up, but he mentioned Romaine, and it's got nothing to do with Romaine. Maywood Rotary, okay, has taken upon themselves, I think we brought it up to before, that we were going to redo the top of the monument, at the Veterans Monument, because it's wearing away. Well, in speaking with the monument, with foremost monument companies, Atlantic Monument, Bill Comrie recommended that we speak to them. And I'm sure you all know who Bill Comrie is. He's probably one of the foremost authorities on parks and the like in this area. The amount of money it's going to take to save that monument, the World War II monument, is going to be significant. We're talking somewhere between $15,000 and $20,000, okay? Rotary was thinking about spending $4,000 or $5,000 for some plaques, but you can't even bolt them into that monument on the top. I'm suggesting to the Legion and the Rotary that we do a program like they did at that they did for the playground. I don't know if you probably don't even remember, because it's way back when I was a teenager, like I was in my 30s when they did the playground at the park. They sold bricks. Okay, so we're thinking about entering into a program to sell bricks with the names of veterans on them. If you have a veteran in your family, you go back to the Civil War, we don't care.
Pave the walkway around.
Well, to pave the walkway, but the monument, if you look at the monument is made of some kind of, it's not granite. It's really not granite. It's a cement. If you look at it closely, it's not granite. It's deteriorating. The top is falling apart. The inside, and the plaques, the brass plaques with all of the names of all the men are falling down. I mean, it looks as if somebody tried to steal them. Okay, there's a lot of money in those plaques. If you look, the bolts have been taken out. They're loosened. They look like they've been replaced. Go up and take a look. Okay. Now, I know that Jack is a veteran. I'm a veteran. There's not too many veterans in the room, but to us, and I hope to everyone, that monument means a great deal. I'm in the middle of Battle Day. I don't know if you know that. It's a story of the Sicilian and the Italian campaign. I'm reading that. Okay, and when you, I wasn't there, but but my point is that the veterans, it has a very particular place to most of us. Okay, a great number of us, who served, are very much concerned. I hope everyone is. But I really think that this should not be a Legion or a Rotary or a VFW, a community, but it should be something that everybody gets behind and redo that monument. It has to be done. Please go up and take a look at it. You've got a partial playground guy. Bill Comrie is the guy that I went to. It's the guy that you guys should talk to, because it's your park, but you're responsible for the park. It has to be addressed before it is beyond any kind of repair. So,
Thank
that's
you.
it.
I did not agree with you more. Yep. I agree with you more.
Anybody else? Okay. Close it to the public. Actually,
Mr. Richards, I think we talked about that at Memorial Day, not to belabor this any further, but 65 years ago, I think Mayor Hogan, up on the wall there, dedicated that, so it's showing its age, and we'll make every effort to take care of it.
Rotary wanted to do something for Veterans Day. We really wanted to do something for Veterans Day, and it's become, you know, it's, but we tried to do something for Veterans Day, but it's just beyond the realm of our capabilities, okay? So it has to be something that everybody gets involved in.
All right, close to the public. Again.
Now, let me sit down before you say that.
Sorry about that, I won't,
Motion to close.
talk afterwards. All right. Closing, motion to close the public.
Motion.
Second.
Okay.
Aye.
All right. Moving on to the approval of the minutes.
I move for the approval of the July 10, 2012 work session and 2 closed session meeting minutes, and the July 24, 2012 council meeting minutes.
Second.
Okay.
Roll call.
Savage?
Yes.
Fleischman?
Yes.
Oriema?
Yes.
Sedgwick?
Yes.
Gallerini? Maglio?
I abstained from the July 10th, because I was not here, but I vote yes for the July 10th.
On to the presentation of bills and claims.
I'll vote for the approval.
Second.
Savage?
Yes.
Fleischman?
Yes.
Oriema?
Yes.
Sedgwick?
Yes.
Maglio?
Yes.
No resignations, appointments. Michael Malagier is part-time administrator assistant with salary $22 per hour effective August 28, 2012. And Frank Calabro Jr. is part-time telecommunicator for the Maywood Police Department with a salary of $15.50 per hour effective August 28, 2012. And Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, that is a person who will be filling in as an as-need basis, is that correct? Anybody care to move the appointment?
Move the appointment.
Second.
Second.
Roll call.
Savage?
Yes.
Fleischman?
Yes.
Oriema?
Yes.
Sedgwick?
Yes.
Maglio?
Yes.
On to approval of the following: the Maywood American Legion Post 142, permission to sell instant raffle games effective October 15, 2012 through October 14, 2013. Motion for approval.
Second.
Roll call.
Savage?
Yes.
Fleischman?
Yes.
Oriema?
Yes.
Sedgwick?
Yes.
Maglio?
Yes.
Resolutions by title.
Resolution 11412, resolution approving submittal of a grant application for Bergen County Historic Preservation Trust Fund for the Remain Oldest Rental Home House Project. Resolution 11512, resolution confirming mayoral appointments to community development. Resolution 11612, resolution amending resolution 212 pertaining to the 2012 schedule of meetings. Resolution 12312, a resolution authorizing an interlocal service agreement between the Borough of Maywood and the City of Hackensack for the collection of solid waste within the Borough of Maywood for 2012-2013.
Motion.
Make a motion to accept.
Second.
Roll call.
Savage?
No on 11412. Yes on the remaining 3. Is that correct? The remaining items.
Okay.
Yeah, okay on that, but no on 11412.
Fleischman?
No to 114-12, yes to the rest.
Oriema?
Yes to all.
Sedgwick?
Yes. To all.
Maglio?
Yes to all.
Ordinances. Committee reports. Savage.
Nothing of a policy nature to discuss tonight, Mr. Mayor. I think has a lot to say. I have nothing else at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Savage. Mr. Fleischman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No policy issues, just have one closed item that I'd like to bring up to the council. Also, while we're on history tonight, celebrating the Dolphins, I was proud to be part of a program we did in 2006, whereby the swim team actually needed to secure starting blocks for the swimmers. So with the aid of the Knights of Columbus, who actually donated some money toward the project. I believe Mr. Stanley got behind that, and the swim pool committee and the parents from the Dolphins at the time had convinced me that how important it was, and we were able to convince the council to follow through on the purchase and installation of those starting blocks. Back in 05, 06, I believe they had about 35 to 40 swimmers. Now we see how far that program and the success they've had over the years. So thanks to the coaches and the parent organization on a fine job. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Oriama. Dr. Medley.
I have a brief minute that the Board of Health had a meeting in August, and the Board of Education moved a meeting to the ninth, the celebration committee met, and we had formally said that Maywood Fall Festival will be on Sunday, October 14th. So we keep that day open. Further information will be given out as it is formalized. The Recreations Committee wanted to remind you that Radius to Music Hall tickets are being sold for November 27th, 5 p.m. $63 per person. It includes very good alternate seats and a bus ride. If you wish to purchase tickets, please contact Ms. Shealy at Borough Hall. But mostly I want to talk a little bit briefly about the summer program, which concluded this week from K through 8th grade. It was a rousing success. I think we should all be very proud of it. We have between 123 and 145 kids in it, interested depending upon what week that we came out. I'd like to thank Superintendent Michael Jordan and Principal Ray Bala for letting us use the Memorial School. But also, very unsung, I'd like to thank Mr. Al Marcioni and his custodial staff at Memorial, who did a wonderful job taking care of our kids. I had the pleasure of, well, first of all, I had the pleasure of looking at some of the emails with Ms. Shealy today from the parents of the children of Maywood who were really overjoyed and very enthusiastic about this program, singing the praises of our staff, asking for a full kindergarten day. Even a lot of non-Maywood people, the word about that's gotten out, are looking to come next year. We started a library club, an art club, a drama club, all of which rousing successes. But the real person that I would cite tonight is Miss Beth Ortiga, who was the superintendent of the summer club. Without her really stewardship, it would not have been a success. And I really think that it's a program that we here at Maywood should be very proud of. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Borough.
Mr. Mayor, Chief Newman did the bulk of my work tonight. I just want to add to what he said. The fire police at that fire had 10 members, totaling about 60 man-hours, and the EMS had 7 members in total. Obviously, they're there to see if there's any injuries or for firefighter rehab and such. Just want to make mention, I don't know if you, maybe you don't remember, but some of the people in the audience and some of the people on this council, back in the summer of 2010, this very issue about the house on the corner of Central and Maywood was brought up by then Mayor Eustace, who said that was the most dangerous corner in town and that something had to be done about acquiring the property because it had gone up for sale at that point. And at that point they were talking about using borough funds. And I think even the then attorney in the discussion, if you can read the minutes, they are up there. The borough attorney mentioned, the then borough attorney mentioned something about eminent domain at that point. So there was discussion about this. You can read the minutes, it is in there, and I guess if you want to get the audio, it's there as well. You can probably see further discussion, and this was discussed, and this was a hot item then, and there was interest in it then. I just assumed that the borough didn't want to expend any funds, and at this point the borough does not want to expend any funds as well. Just wanted to add that, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Borough attorney.
Mr. Mayor, I had a number of conversations, a number of meetings in the last couple of weeks involving the municipal court. I took the liberty of seeking from council special assistant here, Councilman Oriama, who I know was employed for a number of years in Maywood Municipal Court. And we
had some conversations with the folks in Paramus who are interested in absorbing our court into theirs. I think it will be a substantial savings to the borough. The borough currently costs us about $182,000 to run the municipal court as it's currently constituted. Paramus has a proposal where we would pay them approximately $70,000, and we'd get to keep all the fines.
That includes court costs.
Court costs, all the monies that come in would come back to the borough. So, I mean, on its face, savings of 6 figures. And it's something that requires approval. I've had meetings and conversations with Judge Doyne, the Bergen County assignment judge. Because we would need his okay as well as the okay of presiding municipal judge McGady. They preliminary approved, they gave tacit approval to the merger so far. They needed some additional information on the Paramus folks, and I'm waiting for Mr. Giblin, who's the Paramus Borough attorney, to get back to them with that. And then we possibly, at the next meeting, be in a position to move on something. I don't get anything to add on.
I think it's a good idea, along with the significant dollar savings and our keeping all the money generated by tickets and summonses written by our police officers. We also, just as an aside, the administrative office report requires that every municipal court have an armed police officer at the sessions. So we will now take an officer and gain back 150 man-hours on the street. So that's a source of savings, but it's another cost.
Mike was very soft, the audience.
Marianne?
Everybody, I had to pull out, just to... So we're going to know probably in the next meeting or so?
Yeah, I think so.
Where we're standing at. I mean, this is obviously, something we've been kind of working on, I think, throughout the year. Quite frankly, this issue is not a new issue throughout the state or even throughout the borough. I think at one point, Mayor Murphy had looked into doing something along these lines. But the reality of it is we're here at this point. Many municipalities in Bergen County are looking to do this. Woodcliff, Lake Montvale, and Park Ridge currently do this. Hillsdale is trying to do it with that group as well. Dakota and Little Ferry currently do this. I think if the numbers continue to work the way that they look like they're going to work, it will be a substantial savings to the borough without impacting the services to the borough. And as Ms. Oriana indicated, we currently have an armed police officer on duty who sits here to provide security, along with the 2 paid specials who are not armed. But at least that police officer will be able to get back on the road during his or her shift if we make the transfer.
Also, if I can, Mr. Mayor, Paramus has a bigger parking lot. Someone who, I used to go there frequently.
Well, that's also an impact. I guess it won't impact this building for 5 hours a session as it's been going on for 3 times a month, or sometimes more.
And the courtroom itself, for the chambers, it's a much bigger facility. I think they're equipped to handle both the cars and the people much better than we are currently equipped to handle.
Was that a multi-year offer or a 1-year contract or proposal?
Well, the proposal is for a year. We haven't, they're just throwing out numbers, so we can. I'm looking for, I'm just wanted to get it out there and just let you know this is what I've been working on. I think it's a no-brainer, to be honest with you, but if anybody has any questions.
I think that once it's out there, if we commit, I think it'll be a done deal for time, because I don't think that the Judge Doyne and Judge McGee will approve a switch back.
Well, that's the problem. This much this year, next year, hey, guess what? We misjudged it. This is the...
It's a negotiation.
Yeah. Anything else?
That's all I have.
A couple items. You received the senior center rentals comparisons as well as the Board of Health information you had requested. If you want to review it, and we can discuss it further at the next work session. Also, the ordinance, we're waiting for the swim pool meeting on the 10th of September, and we should have that for your review. And the best practices inventory, the requirement, the CFO was, I believe, completed with that. We received it today, and so we're working to have that, and that'll be discussed at the next work session as well as required by law. That's all I have.
I just have a couple things, because some of the things I was going to talk about we've already discussed. We do have a pre-construction meeting on Wednesday the 5th. I know most of you have received that notice on the Spring Valley Road project, and I'm looking forward to that. And I'm also taking quotes on repaving the municipal parking lot on the corner of Palmer and West Fairmont by the school. It's in deplorable condition. I received one quote, and waiting for some others. There's a chance that the company that's doing Spring Valley Road, if we can wait until they start that job, they may come in with a really good number because they'll be in town. They'll have the equipment here, so hopefully they'll give us a good price. And that's something that would be shared, from what I understand, with the Board of Education, even though we do rent some of those spots. And then we also are going to be dealing with the fact of two other parking issues: the library, which is already in the ordinance, and whether or not we're going to be renting any spaces at the pool parking lot to people who've expressed interest.
Look at that until work session. Anything else?
Nope.
CFO, anything? I think we're open. All right, briefly, the Green Team is still working on Junior Garden. We're looking to go shopping with the Home Depot. We've had contact with them last week to go pick up the materials. The intention is to have the DPW install the fencing so that the Green Team committee can construct the actual garden beds and get that up and running and ready for, I guess, next spring or some fall plantings if we have any. Again, that was fully funded by the Home Depot Foundation. We thank them. The street fair occurred on August 19th. It was a big success this year. Roberta and I had some conversations with the promoter earlier in the year, and it looked like it paid off a little bit because I think they brought some different vendors with them this year. It seemed to be a little different this year. And I know that many members of the merchants along Pleasant Avenue have expressed that they had a good day.
That's what I heard.
And that's a good thing. So we'll look at that promoter next year and other promoters. I know Mr. Fleshman's got some names, so we'll talk about that for next year's street fairs. And this year, they actually paid some money back to the borough to help us with the cleanup costs, the promoter did. So that's a good thing also. There will be 9/11 services on Tuesday, September 11th at 8:40 at the September 11th Monument in Memorial Park. The students from Memorial School, as well as the student council from Maywood Avenue School, will be present, and I believe the police and fire department and the EMTs will have representation. That evening at 7:30 p.m. there will be a service of remembrance at the First Presbyterian Church. And I encourage everybody to attend both services. We will not be having our regular meeting as you saw tonight on September 11th. We moved the meetings until September 13th, that Thursday, and to September 20th to avoid holidays, religious holidays that occur later in the month. So just for the record, everybody set it on the calendar. And the Maywood Fall Festival, as Dr. Meglio has indicated, is set for October 14th at 1 o'clock, 1 to 5, or 1 to 6 p.m. There will be live entertainment that's being donated by volunteers, and some fundraising and paying for some pumpkins that will be available for children and pumpkin painting and some games. So it should be a nice event. On that day, there's also a 5K being run in support of Maywood Avenue School. I'm sure that the gentleman running that will have more information available for that. It's basically running the same route that the Rotary runs, but it's also going to occur that morning, I believe at 8 o'clock, starting from Memorial School and finishing at Memorial School. That's it. The plant seemed to survive the street fair pretty well on the island.
I noticed there are about 3 or 4 of them that are going to need a little help if they don't make it through the winter.
We did lose a tree, I guess, in the
Lost a
center
tree.
island due to a car accident last week, but we're holding on. And as I mentioned before, we're up speaking, the Economic Development Committee is meeting this week, and hopefully they'll have something to report on if people are interested in doing some development or redevelopment work in the borough. And that's all I have. Take a motion at this point. We're going into closed session.
Move to closed session.
Roll call.
Savage? Yes. Lightfoot?
Yes.
Mariano?
Yes.
Sedgwick?
Yes.
Neglia?
Yes.
Be resolved by the Mayor and Council, Borough of Maywood, pursuant to provisions of the Open Public Meeting Act, that the Mayor and Council meet in closed session to discuss the following subject matters, subsection 8, concerning personnel matters dealing with employment. The further resolved is precisely determined at this time. Discussion conducted in such closed session can be disclosed to the public upon taking final action thereon. Provided this closure should not violate the attorney-client privilege or constitute undue invasion of privacy, and be further resolved, the Mayor and Council, Borough of Maywood will do not envision they will return to open session, but reserve the right to do so.
5 minutes, Mr. Mayor.
Sure.
Roberto, yes.